What's up, everyone? I'm back with another video coming at you. The year in wrestling, 1988. That's what I'm going to be talking about right now. The year in wrestling, 1988. I'm not talking about DAWA or WCCW. I'm only talking about the WWF and the NWA, because a lot of stuff happened in 1988 in wrestling, and I'm not going to make a 5-part video on 1 year, so I'm only talking about WWF and the NWA. The first big event that happened in 88 was, I'll talk about the NWA had a Buckhouse Stampede pay-per-view. On January 24th, they put on the Buckhouse Stampede pay-per-view event. And what's very, very odd is the WWF also, on the same day, I believe, January 24th, WWF also had the first ever Royal Rumble. It was a special event on the USA Network. It was not on pay-per-view. It was just a special event for the USA Network. I guess Vince and the WWF wanted to compete with the NWA and get nobody to order Buckhouse Stampede or something like that. I guess they wanted to compete, or else why in the hell run an event on the USA Network on cable TV against NWA pay-per-view. I'm not positive that the Royal Rumble was January 24th, 88. I did look it up, but I'm not positive. I'll be back in 1 second. Let me check. And I was right. January 24th, 88, the Royal Rumble was on the air the same time. I'm not sure the exact same time as the Buckhouse Stampede, but it was the same day as the Buckhouse Stampede pay-per-view telecast. And I'm not going to go into great detail on every single match on the Buckhouse Stampede 88 because that would take way too long. I still got to talk about Royal Rumble and WrestleMania 4. Okay, matches. First pay-per-view match was TV champion Nikita Koloff taking on Bobby Eaton, one half of the Midnight Express. They wrestled to a 20-minute time limit draw. So I remember watching the match. I watched it a little while ago on WWE Network. It was a decent match, but it went on too long, and it was a time limit draw, and it got really boring to me. It just did not keep my interest. It was an okay match. I'm sure it was good, but I got bored with it. Anyways, time limit draw. Nikita Koloff retains the TV title. Up next, Larry Zbyszko defeated Barry Windham for the Western States Championship. I don't know what that championship meant. I have no clue, but there was a Western States champion, and Larry Zbyszko was the champion, and he defeated Barry Windham in the match to win the title. My fault. He wasn't champion. So Larry Zbyszko defeated Barry Windham, and he won the Western States, I guess it was called Western States Heritage Championship. So Larry Zbyszko won the Western States title from Barry Windham. Road Warrior Hawk defeated Nature Boy Ric Flair by disqualification in 21 minutes and 39 seconds. This match, I remember watched it about 2 months ago. It was a very good match. Ric Flair, when he was NWA World Heavyweight Champion, he could go with anybody. He could have a good match and put on a good match and pull out a good match with just about anybody. Ric Flair as NWA World Champion, especially in the 80s, he had great matches with anybody and everybody. He could have a great match and make a jobber look like a superstar. So him and Road Warrior Hawk had a good match, very entertaining. Flair worked over his knee and his leg a lot of the match. Hawk could barely walk on his leg, and it ended in a DQ. Someone, I'm sure, interfered. From the Four Horsemen, someone had to interfere. I'm pretty sure of that. Anyways, Road Warrior Hawk defeated Ric Flair, and he was NWA World Champion by disqualification in that match. Up next was the Buckhouse Stampede match. I guess it was like a battle royal inside a steel cage. Why put a battle royal and all those guys inside a steel cage? I have no fucking clue. Very weird, very odd, very pointless to have a Buckhouse Stampede inside a steel cage. I didn't get it. I didn't get the idea. It does not make sense at all. It was probably a Dusty Rhodes idea or a Jim Crockett idea. I could just see Dusty Rhodes. He probably came up with that idea. You know, he probably talked somebody into, hey baby, let's do a Buckhouse Stampede inside a steel cage, if you will, and I'll go over in the Buckhouse Stampede inside that steel cage, baby, because that's the American dream. That's how all the fans want to see the American dream. They want to see the dream win a Buckhouse Stampede. At the Buckhouse Stampede pay-per-view, it has to be the American dream as the winner. I could see Dusty telling the boss, whoever the boss was, Jim Crockett or whoever was in control back in January '88 in the NWA, I could see Dusty Rhodes telling the boss, let's have a Buckhouse Stampede match as the main event, and let's put 18 or whatever it was, 18 or 20 plus guys, and let's put them all in a steel cage. Bad idea. Really bad idea, I thought. Anyways, you had the Warlord was in there. He was very young at the time. The Barbarian was in there. They were the Powers of Pain tag team. And they worked in the NWA before the Powers of Pain. Later on in the summer, around July, they went to the WWF, and they were known as the Powers of Pain in the WWF. They got Baron Von Raschke. It's hard to pronounce his name. Baron Von Raschke from the AWA was their manager in July, and I believe He was the Powers of Pain's manager at SummerSlam '88, also the first SummerSlam ever put on. After Baron Von Raschke was their manager, he wasn't their manager very long because they got rid of him. Anyways, the Powers of Pain were in the Buckhouse Stampede steel cage match. Tully Blanchard was in there. Arn Anderson, Lex Luger was in there. The Four Horsemen at the time. I think Ivan Koloff was in there. I'm not sure. I can't remember, but I think Ivan Koloff was in there. Dusty Rhodes was in there. Road Warrior Animal was in there. And that's all I can remember and think of being in there at the time. Anyways, Dusty Rhodes wins the Buckhouse Stampede. He did a big elbow, bionic elbow, when he was on the top rope. And he knocked out, I think it was the Barbarian. He knocked him out and he fell to the floor. And Dusty Rhodes won the 1988 Buckhouse Stampede. Good for him, if you will. Okay, that was the Buckhouse Stampede '88. Now I'm going to talk about the Royal Rumble from January '88. The first match on the Royal Rumble '88 was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat against Ravishing Rick Rude. I cannot remember who won. I'm pretty sure Ricky Steamboat won. And I know it was a long match. I'm pretty sure they went over 20 minutes. It was a very good match. Steamboat and Rick Rude always had very good, great, awesome matches with each other. They worked very well together. Two awesome talents that is Rick Rude and Ricky Steamboat. They were both great and both A+ players. Anyways, they went and had a very long match at the Royal Rumble '88. I think Ricky Steamboat won. It doesn't really matter who won. It was a good match. Check that match out on WWE Network from Royal Rumble '88. It's the first match on the show. Other matches, you had the Jumping Bomb Angels. They were from, I believe, Japan. I know they were Asian. The Jumping Bomb Angels defeated the Glamour Girls. One of these teams might have been the women's tag team champions at the time. I know they had a women's tag team title in the late 80s. And one of these teams held it, I'm sure, at the time. And the Jumping Bomb Angels were managed by Jimmy Hart, the Mouth of the South legendary manager. Anyways, Jumping Bomb Angels beat the Glamour Girls. And I remember them having tag matches with each other a lot. And they had some good matches it was the late 80s. The fans did not really care at all about women's wrestling. They didn't want to see women's wrestling in the late 80s. But the Jumping Bomb Angels always got a good pop. And they did some awesome maneuvers. They did some great tag team maneuvers. And they were pretty damn good at tag team wrestling. And they had good matches always with the Glamour Girls. Did the Jumping Bomb Angels. They won it. Up next was Dino Bravo in a segment was lifting claims he wanted to break a world record lifting 800 plus 800 pounds, I think. He wanted to bench press, and he said it was going to break a world record, and he was going to break a world record. Whatever. It was pretty stupid to put this on Royal Rumble, to have a bench press segment on the Royal Rumble show. I thought it was stupid as I look back on it. When I was a kid, I didn't care about it. And I don't care about a bench press contest or a bodybuilder trying to break a world record by lifting weights. I don't care about bench pressing or bodybuilders in pro wrestling, period. It's stupid. No one's watching WWE, and I'm pretty sure nobody was watching WWF to see guys bench press 800 pounds and break records. Who cares if Dino Bravo did break a record? Who gives a damn? I didn't, that's for sure. But Dino, God rest his soul, he passed. I believe he's murdered. He was not murdered in 1988. I believe it was it was after 91, either 92 or 93. Dino Bravo was murdered in his home. Anyways, I'll talk about that in my future year in wrestling videos right here on my YouTube channel. So, Dino Bravo broke a bench press record, claimed he lifted 800 pounds. If he did, good for him. I'm sure it wasn't legit, and I do not think he lifted 800 pounds. He probably lifted, who knows if the weights were even real. Who the hell knows? Looked like maybe 500-600 pounds that he benched, but who really knows if it was real, and who really gives a damn. Up next was Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, contract signing for their big match on the main event in February of '88. Hogan and Andre were having a one-on-one rematch from WrestleMania 3. Hogan put his title on the line, and that happened at a main event on NBC back in '88 in February. I'll talk about that next. So, after the contracts are signed, Hogan and Andre were sitting at a table in the ring for the contract signing. Andre slammed Hogan's head into the table, I believe, and Hogan fell over and the table fell on top of him, or Andre threw the table on top of Hogan's chest, and the contract signing was over. Andre walked out, and Hogan was laying on his back, and he did not walk out on his own. Later on, maybe it was after the last match, I don't remember, but later on you had Greg DeGeorge, whatever his name was, Greg the George or DeGeorge, I don't remember how to pronounce his name, but he was an interviewer, and his name was Greg the George, or whatever the hell it was. He interviewed Hulk Hogan, which he was champion at the time, and he had the title with him, and they did an interview with Hogan on a stage in the arena, and Hogan got a massive reaction and pop from the crowd. The Royal Rumble was held in Canada, I know that, and Hogan was super over in Canada in '88, and he was super over in the United States in '88. So I think that interview segment with Hogan was at the end of the show. I'm not sure where it was. Up next, you had the 20-man Royal Rumble match, the first ever Royal Rumble match that the WWF ever put on. The first one. And it was only 20 men in it. It wasn't a 30-man Royal Rumble. The 30-man Royal Rumble started in 1989. This was just 20 men, and it was not on pay-per-view. It was on the USA Network. The first guys in it, I'm not positive because I haven't watched the Royal Rumble 88 match in a long time. Some of the first guys in it, I believe, were Bret Hart. Jake the Snake was in there very early. Tito Santana was in there really early. I believe Honky Tonk Man was in it early. Jim Neidhart was in it very early. Then other guys that were in it. Harley Race was in it early. He lasted pretty long. The Killer Bees were in it. I remember One Man Gang came in it kind of late. He's probably number 16 or later. He came in it late. He eliminated at least 3 to 4 guys. Don Morocco was in it. Ultimate Warrior was in the 1988 Royal Rumble, and the Warrior just started working for the WWF in November 87. Around that time, Warrior started working for WWF, and the Royal Rumble match was one of his first big matches he was in on the USA Network. Anyways, the end. Butch Reed was in it. Who else? I don't know if Dino Bravo was in it. I do not know that. Anyways, Jim Duggan came in it after One Man Gang, or really late on in the Rumble. He might have been number 18 or something. Jim Duggan was in it. And the One Man Gang were in it. The very 2 last guys, they were the last 2 in the Rumble. One Man Gang started running at Jim Duggan. Duggan pulled the top rope down. One Man Gang went flying over the top, and he got eliminated himself, basically. Hacksaw Jim Duggan won and wins the very first Royal Rumble match. Oh! Shout out to Jim Duggan. Okay, after the Royal Rumble match was a 2 out of 3 falls tag team match. It was the Islanders, managed by Bobby Heenan. The Islanders went up against the Young Stallions, and it was 2 out of 3 falls. It was a tag team match. It was not for the tag team titles because they were not the tag team champions. Royal Rumble 88 had 0 title matches on the show. So after the Royal Rumble, we got a 2 out of 3 falls tag team match, and the Islanders won against the Young Stallions. So that was the Royal Rumble 88 show. Now I'm going to talk about the big main event. It was called The Main Event. It was on NBC. I believe it was on a Saturday night. It was like a Saturday night's main event, but it was called The Main Event. You had matches. I believe it was a 1-hour show. You had matches. Honky Tonk Man was defending his Intercontinental Championship against Randy Savage. I think it was a DQ finish, disqualification. I know Savage did not win. He might have won by DQ, but I know Honky Tonk Man walked out as the Intercontinental Champion. He walked out of the main event still as Intercontinental Champ. It could have been a count out finish. I don't remember. I haven't watched that show in years. And I don't remember any other matches. There was probably a tag match on the main event before Hogan versus Andre. I'm not really sure if there was. But, yeah, anyways. February 5th was the main event. And it was on prime time television. The main event was Hulk Hogan defending his WWF World Heavyweight Championship against the challenger Andre the Giant, the 8th wonder of the world. And this match was freaking nuts, folks. The ending and the finish was crazy. I've never seen a finish as crazy as Hogan and Andre, February 5th, 88. There has not been a crazier finish except for maybe the Montreal Screwjob. And Earl Hebner was a part of that too. But Vince really was the guy that called for the bell in that match. Not Earl. Well, Earl went like this, ring the bell, and basically Vince McMahon made the call to screw Brett. But I'm not talking about that, because I'm not talking about 97 right now. I'm talking about 1988, the main event, Hogan versus Andre. The match was not good. It was not very good at all. Just want to check the time here. The match between Hogan and Andre on the main event for the title was not very good at all. It kept my interest, and it is still entertaining to watch because I'm a big Hogan fan. And I like watching a lot of the old late 80s WWF. Love watching that stuff. So, the finish was nuts. Ted DiBiase was at ringside. Virgil was at ringside. Earl Hebner, or Dave Hebner, was the ref of the match. And then Earl shows up. Anyways, Dave Hebner is going one. Hogan had his shoulders down. Andre's on top of him. 1, 2, 3. He counted the 3. Hogan moved his shoulder. He got his shoulder up. Before 3 was counted, he got his shoulder up. Still counted 3. And the ref, the crooked Dave Hebner ref, awarded the match and the championship to Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant was the WWF champion. He was, folks, for a very, very short time, but he still was WWF champ. I'm going to look in this book I have to see how long, if it says how long Andre was the champ. Andre defeated, it's listed here, Andre the Giant beat Hulk Hogan for the title in Indianapolis on February 5th, 88. But then after Andre won it, Mean Gene Okerlund came out. Mean Gene came out, interviewed Andre, interviewed Ted DiBiase, and he was basically in shock. Mean Gene was like, "Please, what's going on here? Let me get a word with you two." And basically a minute later, after Andre won the title, he gives it and hands it to Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. Andre gave the title over to Ted DiBiase and gave it to him. Basically handed it to him. Ted DiBiase puts the world title around his waist declares himself WWF champion, and that he bought the WWF championship. He claims, or he said, I bought myself the WWF championship because he was a crooked $1 million man. He was a hell of a heel. So he declared himself champion, and Andre gave it up to Ted DiBiase. So then Hogan was pissed at the end of the match. And then you have Earl Hebner, the twin brother of the ref that was in the ring. Or Earl might have started the match originally as the ref. He might have started it being the ref. I can't remember. Anyways, you had the two twin referee brothers standing in the ring, staring at each other face to face. It was funny as hell. It's still great to watch, and it's still entertaining. It was very shocking back then when it happened. It was very shocking. Very creative finish to have two twin brothers dressed as the ref. Basically, they were arguing, and one of them, I believe Earl, kicked Dave in the stomach, or one of them kicked each other, and then they tried to throw the other one out of the ring. One of them did get thrown out of the ring by the other brother, and Hogan was pissed, and he grabbed both of them, I think, and he threw one of the brothers out of the ring, one of the twins out, and Hogan bench pressed one of the others, bench pressed his ass, tossed him over the top rope onto Andre and Ted and Virgil, and the other twin ref brother tossed his ass over the top. He took them all out to the floor. Hogan was pissed, rightfully so. He got screwed by crooked referees and by the $1 million man, because he set it all up because he wanted to buy himself the WWF championship. And Ted DiBiase never did win a world championship in professional wrestling. He was good enough to be a world champion, I thought, but he never became one. Okay, after the main event, it was after February 5th. After February 5th, 88, folks, Hogan was the champion for 4 straight years. For 4 freaking years. Hogan won the title in 84 in January from the Iron Sheik at Madison Square Garden in NYC. Hogan won the title from the Iron Sheik. Epic moment. MSG. Hulkamania ran wild. New York City ran wild. They loved Hogan. They loved him beating the Iron Sheik for the title in 84. January 88. 4 years later, ladies and gentlemen, Hulk Hogan was still the WWF champion. 4 years as champion. Damn impressive. We will never see that again in professional wrestling ever. I believe we will never see a champion we will never see a champ hold a title for 4 straight freaking years. I doubt it. I doubt it will ever happen before Hogan was a champ for 4 years. One of the longest, probably the third longest WWF, WWF, WWE world title reign. Probably the third longest world title reign in WWE history belongs to Hulk Hogan. Then you had Bob Backlund I don't remember what year Bob Backlund won it. I should have kept it on this page. It would freaking tell me. Bob Backlund held the title after defeating superstar Billy Graham. Bob Backlund held it from 1978 all the way until December 26th, 1983. So Bob Backlund, probably the second longest title run. And Bruno Sammartino, the first longest title run. I believe he held the title over 2,000 days. That is insane. But it was the early 70s. It was a different era and a different time. We will never see a champ hold the title for like 7 years again. He won it. Bruno won it in 1963. Then he held it until January 18th, 1971. Bruno, very long champion. That's 8 years. That's almost 8 years that Bruno Sammartino was champion. Hogan, very impressive. Held the title for 4 years. And after $1 Million Man was awarded the title in February, and Hogan lost it to Andre, that ended his 4-year run as champ. And then Ted was stripped the WWF Championship by the WWF president at the time, Jack Tunney, stripped the $1 Million Man and declared at WrestleMania 4 on March 20, let me get the date, March 27th, 1988, you had WrestleMania 4, and the president of the WWF, Jack Tunney, declared there would be a tournament. The winner would become the new WWF Undisputed Heavyweight Champion of the world. I believe it was a 16-man tournament to start with. I talked a hell of a lot. I went through the Buckhouse Stampede and the Royal Rumble and the main event. My next video, part 2 of the Year in Wrestling 1988, part 2 video. I will do a part 2, and I may do a part 3 and 4, because a lot of events and pay-per-views happened in 88. Coming up in 88, I'm going to talk on the next video. I'm going to talk about the Clash of the Champions, the very first one, which happened on March 27th on TBS, the Superstation. Main event was Ric Flair versus Sting, 1-on-1, and it was a hell of a main event up against WrestleMania 4. Flair and Sting went to a draw, 45 minutes, I believe it went. Yeah, Sting and Flair at the first Clash of the Champions went 45 minutes. That was a hell of an entertaining match. And Flair basically made Sting a star that night. Check out Flair versus Sting, first ever Clash of Champions. Check that match out on the WWE Network if you have it. It's an awesome match. I will talk about Clash of the Champions next video, part 2. And I will talk about WrestleMania 4. And then after WrestleMania 4, I will talk about the Great American Bash 88. And then there will be a part 3 video where I will talk about Starrcade. I believe Starrcade was the next NWA pay-per-view, Starrcade 88. And I will talk about SummerSlam 88, and I will talk about the Survivor Series 88 in my next Year in Wrestling 1988 video, part 2. So, I have to go now, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this video. Wherever you watched it from, if you watched it on Twitter or YouTube, thank you for watching it. Follow me on Twitter at TNAWWE Guy. Bye for now.